Hi, this is Ralph Wirtz, Managing Editor of the Midland Daily News, and this is another edition of Frontpage. Frontpage is a cooperative effort between the Midland Daily News and Midland Community Television, and every month we get together for a couple shows to talk about issues in and around Midland County of interest to our viewers. And one of the issues that's going to be coming up here real soon, in November to be exact, is the issue of the Midland County road millage. I've got two experts here to talk about what they need, why they need the millage, and what it is, and how much it goes for. My guests today are Brian McManus, who's city engineer. Welcome, Brian. And Russ Inman, who is the interim manager for the Midland County Road Commission. Welcome, Russ.
Thank you.
I guess first thing we do is tell people what's coming up on the November ballot.
We have a question that's related to an added road millage of 1 mil to improve our road network and system. We seem to be falling behind in our maintenance and upkeep, and due to various things over the years going on, and so we're asking the voters to consider the question of an additional road millage.
Okay. And so how much are you falling behind? Maybe you could start on that, Russ.
Our needs are immense. I can quantify it, but it's a scary number.
Scare me.
We estimated last year in 2013 that our need was about 65 million.
Wow.
Just to bring poor roads up to good condition. Unfortunately, rising material costs across the board, everything's been rising, and gasoline, everything impacts the actual amount of materials you can put down on the ground.
Okay. City, how are you guys doing?
Well, you know, about 8 years ago in 2006, around there, I was happy to say that, you know, it seems like we were moving along pretty nice. And then, as you know, the bottom of the economy fell out. People were driving less, which means gas and weight tax money's down, revenues are down, and we started accumulating a gap in the money needed to keep up with a good system versus revenues that are available. So I'm estimating a gap of about $9 million, or a deficit of $9 million, with about an annual gap of $1.5 million, the gap being what should be going in to keep the system stable in terms of funds versus what we're actually putting in.
Okay. Will this 1 mil adequately address the road needs?
Well, it would definitely improve our system and start a long ways down the road towards taking care of that deficit that we have. And you know, this millage would approve about, if approved, would be about 2.3 million for the city. So if I'm a $1.5 million behind on a yearly basis, and then of course I got the deficit to catch up with, then that would get us on track pretty well in terms of 4 years. It wouldn't solve all of our problems, you know, because costs keep going up. We are stretching our dollars now. We try to be good stewards of the money that we have, and we're stretching them the best we can, but we can't stretch much further.
Okay. Well, I certainly like East Ashland Street.
Yes,
So.
yeah.
How about the county?
Well, the funding would definitely help turn the tide against the overall decline in our road network. You know, we've seen the large percentage of our good roads turn, you know, to the poor condition over the last decade. You know, since 2006, where we had in the primary road system about 16% poor roads, we're now at 31%. And it's a bad trend, and unfortunately, it's a hard one to reverse all at once. But this would definitely be a step in the right direction.
Okay. Now, to be clear with the viewers, for the county road system, and you're talking primary roads, we're not talking like M20?
There's state highway. The primary roads are different from the state highways. We have local roads and we have primary roads. The local roads are roads that we partner with the townships, and they contribute about 50% per state law, and then the road commission contributes 50%, and they generate their desired list of projects. So they have all the local citizens' support and feedback in that process, and the primary roads are the major roads like Eastman and such.
Okay. How about for the city? Is it all roads? Would this money be spread across all roads?
Yeah,
or are there-
this would primarily be put on what we call major and local streets. Majors are your Jefferson Avenue, Wackerly kind of roads, and local streets are the smaller ones in your residential neighborhood. So it would be geared towards both of those streets, not towards any highway or MDOT-related highway funding.
And
needs.
in the city, what roads are that? That's like I-75?
In the city, there's
US 10?
MDOT actually owns or has jurisdiction over M20, VR10, Buttles, Indian, Eastman Avenue. Those roads are state
Okay.
jurisdiction.
Okey-doke. What's different about this millage request than the one that failed in 2012? Is there,
Well, 2012 was sure a devastating defeat in terms of if you're a roadman that you're trying to take care of these issues. And so, of course, we're 2 more years down the road of accumulated deficit on our growing need to try to keep the system in good shape. In terms of the ballot, though, language, in 2012 we had a change in formula. A road millage is based on the tax value of the community by statute. We had proposed one that was based on population, and we think that was getting against our proven formula that's worked for 30 years on our renewal millage that we have. And so that we're going back to the old formula with this proposed millage is to keep it based on the taxable values of the community. So
Okay.
that is a change.
and the one in 2012 was going to be shared 50-50, wasn't it? Is that,
Closer to 50-50, but not quite.
okay. And what's the proven formula?
The statutory formula is based upon a couple different factors. I believe it's number of roads, population. It takes into several factors into account. Was it population?
Yeah, that's for, in terms of primary and local, and major and local, it's dependent on population and road miles within a community. But in terms of the road millage itself, it's based on the taxable value of the community. So in terms of dollars, that goes into that. This whole issue would produce about $3.6 million, and about 2.3 of that would be city funding, and about 1.3 would be the county road millages and other jurisdictions. So it's based on a taxable value of the jurisdictions within the county.
Okey-doke. So, can you give a few examples of what you would be working on should you be able to get the extra millage? You probably got a plan right now based upon what we have. What extra would we be doing? Just give me a couple of examples. I don't need a laundry list. But
Well, I can start. What we are going to do with ours, and we present a new list to City Council every year coming up in December, but what we want to concentrate a new millage on is back to resurfacing and reconstruction type projects, whereas right now we got a pretty good emphasis on surface treatments. And surface treatments are those projects that are necessary, but they're a little bit clumsy in terms of motorists liking them, because you see some rocks down on the roads.
that's
for
where
a
you put
period
the
of
tar down and
put
then
the
you put
tar
the stone.
down, and they're very valuable, because when you're taking care of a network, you got to hit all levels of road conditions to keep the network good. You got to work on some good, fair, and poor all at once. So we're gonna concentrate on getting back to reconstruction. That's really that bell curve that I mentioned that we're behind on, that deficit. We want to get to those roads and start getting them taken care of and make an improvement in our system.
okay. How about you, Russ?
Well, the road commission splits the money, the millage money funding, with all 16 townships to spread the money around, so every township and all the residents see the effects of the millage. So a portion of that money would go directly back to the townships. With the primary monies, they'd go towards our bridge program, a mix of fixes on the roads, trying to maintain the large number of roads we have, trying to maintain as many of them as possible in a good or fair condition and not try to prevent that slide down towards poor conditions.
Okay. Does it take more work in this area particularly, since we're in the valley, to maintain roads than it does in a lot of other places like, say, Illinois or places that doesn't have the topography? I mean, once you consider that Dorothy Yates in her book wrote something about a miasma of swamps, and we're putting roads on them, and you know, they freeze and they thaw. And
The soils definitely play a role in that, drainage, soils, but the freeze thaw that you touched on, that really, I think, is the key element to Michigan and our roads in Midland. It's really devastating that we all found out after this last winter that was so harsh. It's ever so clear the need after those winters, and then followed by some of this torrential rains we've had. That's where the soils come in, and you start seeing bank slides and adjacent to roadways, and but definitely the climate, I think, is a huge factor in that.
Yeah, I think topography, the main thing that you look at on a road system is making sure you drain the water away. And we actually are able to do that in most designs. We really pay attention. I mean, our storm sewer system outlets eventually into the Tittabawassee River for the most part of it. So we're able to overcome topography. But yeah, I mean, we see the effects of the swamp or the lake from years ago because we encounter wetland areas from time to time. But in general, we can get our roads to drain the water away, which is very important for the durability of them. And yeah. I agree with Russ. Climate is a big thing. Freezing and thawing cycles can just tear apart a road. This last winter was one of the worst that we have seen in a long time, and I mean, we have roads that have opened up new cracks, and old cracks were there that got wider, back to the reason a lot of that spray patching with the rocks was put in place this spring, because that was a valuable tool to take care of that immediate impacts of the winter last year, and very helpful. But climate is a big thing here compared to, of course, some of the southern states.
Yeah, I've thought about that for a long time because I used to live on 8 Mile Road. And you probably know that it's about every 4 years they're back at it, fixing it again because it's so low and doesn't drain very well. What are some of the costs that's involved with putting a road? You keep saying all the cost of putting roads together is going up. There's a lot of costs that people do see, the material, the manpower on the streets. There's a lot of costs that go into maintaining roads that people don't see. Studies that are mandated by certain different types of governments and federal agencies. And tell us a little bit about why the cost of a road per mile is going up all the time.
Well, you got the drainage, crack sealing, and road patching and such, gravel costs. Those materials, obviously, your costs of fuel for operations, and this just seems to go through the roof, especially when you're running diesel vehicles and stuff like that, and those have consistently been over $4 a gallon for years now.
That was a big blow to your budget then when it went up from about $2 to $4?
Oh yeah. The other one is road salt for winter operations. That's gone up exponentially over the last decade. Last year alone, it was $46 a ton for us. This year, it's $62. And when you buy, 6,000 tons at a time, it adds significant cost.
That's about 32% increase.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll see a brochure from, for instance, the Oakland County Road Commission or something like that keeps pretty good track. And I mean, I've seen numbers of like guardrail up, 200%. And then any part of your road design or your road base, like the gravel or the sand, that's dependent on trucking, and the trucking is fuel to get it there. And so this last year, one of the surprises was the gravel, the stone that we put down went up about 30% from other increases just because of the trucking costs on it.
So you have all these other costs in addition to what a normal business would have, such as health insurance and all the other things that go up exponentially.
Yeah. And so, and when we look at kind of along the lines of that question, when we look at a network, and I think I mentioned this briefly before, but we we try to fix roads in all conditions. You have to have the right fix at the right time on the right roadway, I guess, is how we describe that. So we hit some poor ones, we work on some medium ones, and we also work on some good ones, because if you can put a lower amount of money, a lower cost surface treatment into a road and expand its life by a certain number of years, maybe it's 5 or 7 years, that can really pay off in dividends down the road when the road is reaching its age of its retirement age, so to speak, of 30 years. And it's kind of like a house. If you put maintenance into your house, your roof, before it's actually leaking in the house, you can save money down the road, because you're not replacing walls and drywall. So it's a kind of an analogy would be comparing it to house maintenance.
Okay. Are there materials newer materials that are cheaper that work as well, or are the newer materials that work as well more expensive?
Well, we're always trying to save costs and cut costs where we can. For instance, on chip seal roads, having to change the stone types, like Brian mentioned, the costs have just gone through the roof. So we go with, right now we're using limestone instead of trap rock. After that, we follow them with a new process, new to us in the last 2 years, where we fog seal it, where we're adding a sealant after the operation's done, which seems to lock it. Well, it does lock the material in place and gives a longer lifespan. But back to salt. To make that last longer, we'll add sand to it, different ratios for different weather. We add brine with it, so it doesn't bounce off the road as much. Called pre-wetting. We do a lot of things to try to save and minimize our product.
Yeah.
So another winter like the one we had last winter, you don't want to see that.
No.
Yeah, every product that you put down has a life cycle, and I think the important thing is to get that right mix. And there are new ones that come out, and that's where we have, I guess you could use the word saved or cut costs, because we're always looking for those ones that are maybe newer and provide a life expectancy of repair more than what you might get by another one right beside it. For instance, we did a hot in place recycling up on the northwest side of town a few years ago, and it was a newer process for us, so we're still evaluating. It looks like it worked fine, but it was in between some of our other major repair methods and with a better life expectancy. So we're always looking for different methods.
Okay. Are there certain products that you use in certain areas? Like on M20, they mostly used, is that concrete that they mostly use there when they build it?
Yeah.
And I noticed there's other materials on side streets. And is there any rule of thumb on what you use where? So based on mileage or anything?
We generally
Usage?
use, for the main road, asphalt, curb and gutter, and it seems to work the best for us, because often we have underground utilities that you're going to have to get to sooner or later: water mains, sewer lines, storm sewer lines. And whereas concrete might be a longer lasting material overall to begin with, when it does reach its life cycle, it's much more expensive to repair. And if you got to get below it to do some utility maintenance, it's just a lot more costly. So asphalt's roadway system's has been a good system for the city. And when you do have to eventually catch up with it and do major repairs, it's generally easier to do and less costly at that point than, say, a concrete road.
Okay. Okay, concrete has a certain life. What are the lifespans of the different materials that you use? Does it differ because of usage over it, or?
Oh, definitely usage and the types of traffic on it. Semis and stuff will just eat up a roadway. In the out county, a lot of the roads were built in the 60s, and they were old gravel roads with multiple layers of chip seal added on top of each other to create an asphalt type surface. It was a hard road surface versus a gravel road. Those have been long overdue, long past their life cycle, and that's where out in the out county it doesn't take much where those are starting to really explode. But asphalt is the #1 material we use as well.
Okay. Will this millage generate any matching dollars from the federal or state government? Or is that figured into the $3.X million?
No, that's, we can use these funds to match federal funds, state and federal funds. We have urban program, a rural program, critical bridge program, safety programs. All those require a local match, and these funds can be used towards those matches.
Okay.
Yeah, and we certainly plan to use some of this money for federal highway grants that we might receive, because usually their formula is on a project where you have federal funding is 80% federal dollars and 20% local. So in a sense, if you can get a federal grant, you're getting the same amount of mileage of work done for 20% of the cost as if it's your own money. And some of the funds are even better. I believe the federal safety fund and the federal bridge program is only a 5% match. So certainly if you're in need for those kind of things like a bridge replacement, you definitely want to go that way. And when a grant becomes available, you want to have those matching funds for it, and
Okay.
it has to be at a local level.
So voters should know that it's not just if they pay $10 in taxes, $10. It could be as much as quite a bit more.
True, and this whole millage, and we usually produce a brochure every year that we mail to all the households, and we're planning on doing that again. And we mention in there that this millage will produce $3.5 million for all the agencies within it, and it equates back to approximately $50 on your tax bill per year for a $100,000 house. Now, we are sensitive to raising taxes. We don't like to do that. It's about the last thing we want to do, but we're at a point in our system where we are falling behind. We can't keep up. We've got this deficit we've talked about in terms of accumulation of roads that need to be repaired, and it's growing every year. So we haven't been able to see the state legislatures go anyplace. They talk about it every year. Last time there was a gas tax, which is our other source of revenue. A gas tax increase was, I think, in '97 or '98. So I think the message here is that, really as a community, it's a community issue. Poor roads do reflect poorly on a community, and so this is really a chance to start getting back ahead of the deterioration curve a little bit. And so even though it could be a little bit painful, we see no other way to get that improvement in our system and not have this long-term liability laying out there forever.
Okay.
Yeah, and the cost of no action, the poor roads do reflect in increased, car maintenance, damages to vehicles, beyond just, tolerating a rough ride and, the aggravation of that. It all is a one big circle. If you do the maintenance on the roads, you have less maintenance on vehicles. And, one way or another, unfortunately, it's going to cost, the whole population. And it's not a good thing, but it's better to direct the money towards the right goals. And improved transportation is always a good one.
How does it affect economic development, the road system? Is that one of the key factors when a business is looking to locate any place?
I believe commerce really looks favorably upon, an area with good roads.
Yeah. Again, I think it comes back to that reflection of your community. Would a business want to relocate here? Would they want their people living here if it's hard to get around? And the roads are bad. They're bumpy. It's not a good. May not seem to them like it's a good place to locate.
Okay. What does it mean for each of your departments if this millage fails? I mean, you've mentioned that you've got big deficit there. How much will that grow by?
We have a forecasting program. It's a computer software pavement management system. There's a lot of names that you might have heard or could call it. And it tells me what I should be spending on a yearly basis, in a sense, to keep an even pace of deterioration, not a declining. And so it's telling me I have that $1.5 million per year gap in what should be spent, put into the road system versus what is spent. So, so if this fails, that continues to grow.
Will that grow like by 2 million instead of $1.5 million, say 3 years down the road because of you know,
Yeah.
you got to spread it around?
Yeah, at some point, it does grow at an accelerated or exponential rate, and it will keep going up. Because, you know, if you look at a deterioration curve, you know, if you can fix things early in the life, early, say 5 to 10 years out at $1 a square foot as just a rough number, but it takes you $4 a square foot to start doing that work just 10 more years later. You want to try to get ahead of that curve. So we will grow worse. The condition, we will fall further behind, and at some point we'll have a real large deficit.
Okay, Russ?
Well,
You got about a minute.
Sorry. Well, one of the scarier things is as the roads, proceed down that status to a very poor road, we'll have to convert some of them back to gravel, grinding them up, and that is not a popular thing by the public. And nobody wants to live on a gravel road, especially when they bought on a paved road. And we do everything we can to avoid that. But overall, it'd be a continued decline in the overall road network.
Okay. We're going to have to wrap it up right now. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
My name is Ralph Wirtz, Managing Editor of the Midland Daily News. This has been another edition of Front Page. My guests today have been Russ Inman, who is the Interim Director of Midland County Road Commission, and Brian McManus, who's the City Engineer. And this we'll be coming back at you in a couple weeks. We'll see you later.